Hello, miscellaneous humans. So, I found myself in need of a new PC, and not being a big RGB fan of big RGB fans, I wanted to go in a different direction. I cast about in my big beautiful box of broken bits and promptly came across this delightful device. It is a US Office of Civil Defense Geiger counter from circa 1957, and it is very broken. I picked it up in a junk shop when I was 16, and haven't thought of a project for it yet. It's too small to actually fit this project though, so I'm just copying the aesthetic. Because, well, look at it. It might not be everybody's cup of tea, but this thing is so far up my alley. It's just got this relentless utilitarianism to it that I love. Next up, the case. This beige brick of magnificence is a Baxter FlowGuard Model 6301 dual continuous infusion pump. It boasts many features, none of which are relevant. These wavy guys to either side are its twin peristaltic IV pump mechanisms. That one's missing its door, but you get the point. Since I haven't quite hit the stage of my pro gamer journey where I need Mountain Dew pumped directly into my veins, those are coming right out. And that's a good thing too, because I'm going to need that space. Desperately. Because, despite this thing being pretty beefy as bits of portable medical equipment go, the inside of that case is just barely big enough to lay a sheet of printer paper down flat. And that is not much for a computer system. In place of the pumps, there'll be fans on either side. And that sounds great, except that I measured those spaces, and the biggest fans that are going to fit are 60 millimeters. So, like its daddy, this is going to be one skinny hot boy. This whole front panel is getting ditched as well, to be replaced with a hunk of sheet metal with cutouts for all sorts of fun gauges and switches and buttons. As to the system inside, the sensible thing to do would have been to get one of those mini PCs running laptop hardware. However, as I've never claimed to be a sensible man, what I've actually done is get this. A full mini ITX board, some mid-range MSI thing from a few years back. I got a good deal on it along with an i5-10500. It's kitted out with a 32GB DDR4 kit and a 1TB M.2 drive. It's not the latest and greatest, but that 65W TDP should at least help a little bit with the thermals, and it shouldn't bottleneck the card that I've got. As to that, I would love to go full dumb and use a full-size card, but even with a riser, there just isn't enough vertical space in this thing. So I've gone with the best available option, the low-profile RTX 4060. Rounding out the internals is this itty-bitty 500W power supply, which there is very little to say about beyond look how tiny it is. And it's apparently one of those that's classed as a bit of a fire hazard, so it'll probably get replaced at some point. It's good enough for now. And here is the finished product. Let's start with gauges. They are 3 5V analog voltmeters, which I use because it makes them very easy to wire and control. They're wired straight into an Arduino Nano, which sits back here, no extra circuitry required, and driven with PWM signals off the analog pins. I took them apart and printed new labels for each of them. The top one shows CPU use, middle one GPU, and the bottom one is switchable between CPU and GPU temperature. That uses the first of these toggle switches, also wired to the Arduino. The second turns on an audible alarm that simulates Geiger counter noises, and the last one is programmable. It's currently set to kick all the fans up to 100%. The buttons and LEDs are just wired to standard front panel headers. Power and reset button, power and disk activity LED. All very normal. If you're one of those people with a button and switch fetish, looking at you here, Dawood, these things will unfailingly rustle your vegetables, you weirdo. Now, because I like to make things as hard as possible, all the I/O is run through panel mount extensions. As a result, it is limited. You get 2 USB 3 ports up front, headphone and microphone jacks. On the side, there are the Wi-Fi antennas, 1 USB 2 port, and 1 HDMI. Finally, on the back, you've got your power jack and gigabit Ethernet. And that is it. And while we're looking at its backside, you may have noticed a fun feature from this thing's days as an IV pump, which is that it's pole mountable. I left that alone because, of course I did. Why you would want to mount this on a pole? I have no idea. Maybe you want to roll it around your house. Maybe you want to confuse a dancer. Maybe you are a dancer and you're putting on a very unique show. I'm not here to judge. In use, it doesn't get nearly as hot as I'd worried. The fans, intake on the left and exhaust on the right, move a surprising amount of air. So despite being tiny, they do get the job done, a sentiment I'm very familiar with. The highest temperatures I've seen are in the low 70s, both the CPU and GPU. I think it helps that because of how the motherboard is mounted upside down to make the cable extensions work, the graphics card is right under the top left fan, with air being blown straight down onto it. Performance is pretty solid too. I was having some trouble getting a screen recorder going without utterly tanking the frame rates, but here they are for a couple of the games that I play the most. Now, the inside. This is properly tricky to film, and if you are a cable management purist, I suggest you look away now because this part is gonna hurt. There are two issues. One is that this case is just one chamber. There is nowhere to tuck away excess cable. The other issue is that, well, no part of this is a panel that you can take off to access the inside. It just splits in half, with all the computery bits in the back and the fans and switches and LEDs in the front, all of which have to be plugged in. That means there's a bit of a battle going on between keeping the cable short enough to manage when it's closed and long enough to plug in the first place. The result is, as I said, a special circle of Dante's Hell just for the cable management guys. In the end, though, it does all fit in there, nothing's poking in the fans, and the temperatures are good enough to show they're not utterly screwing the airflow. It's good enough for me. And that's about all I've got for this project. Let me know what y'all think, and if there's anything else you want to see. Bye!